I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Yes. What's up, world? Welcome back to I Mix What I Like right here, BPM. You know what it is. My main man, Hiram Rivera, back in the building. What's up, sir? Good to see you
good.
again.
I'm good, Dr. Ball. How are you?
I can't complain. Everything is looking good over here. Just want to welcome you and everybody to the program. Like, share, subscribe, invite your friends, tell a friend, like the ear doctor says, and come on through and join this conversation. Welcome to the remixers who are here live and those who will see and hear this later. We appreciate you and thanks again. All right. So I've been pressing you. I've been bothering you about a sports show, and I appreciate you reaching out to say, let's at least talk about this. Right. So I don't know exactly how you want to begin, but
yeah. So one was definitely reached out to you because I've been talking about this sports thing for a long time and having off the air conversations. The Super Bowl is probably the biggest sporting event in this country. I think there's a lot that can be said about the Super Bowl, both in terms of social impacts, political impacts, and just the game itself, right? Because it was a tremendous game. It was an incredible game. Probably one of the
so
best.
You did watch you watched the game itself? Because I admittedly I only saw about a little bit of the first half. So
yeah. I mean, it's one of the contradictions that I hold. I watch professional sports, right? And I enjoy it. And so I definitely watched the game. I think the subplot, all the different plots of the game, right? So you have like the whole Taylor Swift thing that was going on, and folks were really mad about that. I think throughout the whole playoffs, right? There's been this whole war against Taylor Swift and the Chiefs on one end. But then just the narrative around the quarterbacks, right? So Purdy being Mr. Irrelevant, being the last man drafted, Mr. Irrelevant being the most probably disrespectful thing that all professional sports do, right? Is when someone achieves his childhood dream of making it to a professional league, they mock him for being the last person picked, like you would in the schoolyard, right? And call him Mr. Irrelevant and send him to Disneyland and give him a parade for being irrelevant and basically saying you're probably not going to make your team anyway.
Wait, did they say he got sent to Disneyland for that?
They sent Mr. Irrelevant to Disneyland. Yeah, it's a thing. Mr. Irrelevant,
I didn't know that.
Thing. But
I mean, I knew about Mr. Irrelevant. I didn't know about that part though. Wow,
it's a whole mocking thing that the NFL does for the last person chosen in the draft. But to have Mr. Irrelevant, then in about 2-3 seasons later, being the Super Bowl, is that's never happened before, right? And then he's going up against Patrick Mahomes, who is on path to becoming the greatest quarterback of all time, and for a lot of people is considered the greatest quarterback of all time because of his athletic ability, and he's doing things on the football field that we've never seen before, right? Jared, you're as old as me. You also remember that there was a time when Black quarterbacks, period, was just like the biggest taboo, right? And all of these signifiers, hybrid quarterbacks, mobile quarterback, right? Dual threat quarterback, were all these like cues, racist cues to be like, they're
what
Black.
What did they call Cordell Stewart back in the day? What was his nickname?
Slash.
That's right. Because run/pass.
Dual
right?
threat. The dual threat.
Yeah.
What that meant was that what they can achieve on the field physically, right, made up for what they lacked in terms of IQ to play the position of quarterback. But this season, right, the two best quarterbacks was Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, who won his second MVP. And then not only is Lamar Jackson, right, but the amount of Black quarterbacks that we have in the league at the highest level. When you're talking about the best quarterbacks in the league, most of them are black. Tua, Dak Prescott, Mahomes, Jackson, Fields, CJ Stroud, the boys coming in, Caleb Williams, right? Jalen at LSU, Penix in Washington. So there's all these there's a whole lot. I mean, you could take this thing and go into a number of different directions, but I think the main thing that we're here to talk about as well is how these sporting events, because what they are, it's entertainment. It's sport, but it's also entertainment. These events are used to not only sell us things, to continue to turn us into consumers, to market, but it's also to distract us, right? And you end up seeing a lot of global conflicts end up happening around these events as well. And so as Israel is bombing Rafah, where they pushed all of these people into the south of Gaza and are now trying to completely win this war, as they say on their side, they do it strategically during the Super Bowl, when Whitney Houston was singing probably what was considered the greatest rendition of the Star Spangled Banner to ever be sung at the 1991 Super Bowl that my beloved New York Giants won, right? She did it with fighter planes flying over her as the country was bombing Iraq. And so where do sports, with all of their wonderful things that they themselves have, right? Where do they also fit within the politics, the economics, the social conditioning, social control, simultaneously? And so while we can look at Patrick Mahomes and be like, you left too much time on the clock. Y'all left too much time on the clock for Patrick Mahomes. This is game over. You also have this thing happening on the other side.
When I read, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I say, and the goal is to keep us distracted, to ignore what's happening, right? Don't look at that over there. Don't talk about that over there. Stay focused on this here. But you were saying?
No, I was just saying I read. I don't think I've watched anything, but I read a few of the summaries of the game, and it sounds like it was an incredibly good game. I did watch Cam and Mase, and they said it was a good game. So therefore,
you addicted to Cam and Mase. Yeah.
I got a problem. I don't watch when they have OJ on for the most part, but
I feel like they always got OJ on though.
No. At most once a week, at most. So it's just one show a week I got to skip. I admit it. I enjoy the show. I can't. I'm gonna have a problem with it for a minute. They're gonna have to do something egregious to make me turn away, and they haven't got there yet. And then when Cam starts the show with
having the juice on isn't egregious enough.
No, it's not. It's not. I can just skip that show. It's not.
All right.
It's like you said, it's a contradiction. That's why I'm not. I don't watch the sports anymore, but I like to watch the discussion. And the debate, and I just think I do like a little bit of how they are both being co-opted by and undermining mainstream media. So I'm interested in that whole thing. And when they make the point that the only thing separating them from ESPN is the rights to the highlights, I think they're on to. I mean, I think that's it. So, but whatever. I'm just saying, I'm not defending my choice. I'm acknowledging the.
Right. The thing with Cam and Mase is interesting. I mean, they're funny, right? Like I've watched some of it, but I still want my sports from ESPN. I don't want to hear all that.
Okay. See, I only want to. I don't want to hear.
Right.
I like the way they do it. Yeah.
They're funny, right? And it's like the pause, the pause game. The pause game stuff, which is wild because, to your point, you see mainstream TV doing that now. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen it on Fox Sports. I've seen it during Monday Night Football. I've seen it on ESPN. They don't go as far as saying pause, but they will do the "Hey, yo." Oh, that's crazy. Or, right. And so now there's this whole thing where you see it when they telecast in games, someone's last name is Dix, and then the other person, who these are grown men. These are folks who are like in their 50s, right? All suited and booted, and they're like, hey, yo, what? And it's like,
it's totally childish and backwards. I mean, I'm not proud of it. I'm sharing it with the people.
I get it. Like,
it's a mess.
We I don't say all of us, but I have definitely participated in a few AOs. But it's just, I think it's different when you start seeing like mainstream TV.
Yeah,
doing that, because you're definitely appropriating Cam and Mase, but it's like, is that what you wanna? But
no, it's a problem. But even beyond that, I think they actually bring some decent sports analysis. I think they know the game, particularly basketball. And I've never paid attention to Cam before, or Mase. Like, as rappers, I never really paid attention to them like that. So this is all fascinating to me. No. The real reason is because I was on Jay-Z's side. That's the other thing. So like, Cam was with Dame, and I never liked all that Dipset stuff that much. Some of it, but not too much. And Mase I was like, that's Biggie's little homeboy. I was like, I don't even know what this. I'm like,
Mase. I don't know any Mase fans, because that was the shiny suit era, and so I don't know any Mase fans. But Killer, yeah, I mean, he's
nice though, but the rhymes he does to open up this show, I'm like, wow, yeah. I didn't know if he's like that. I just wasn't really listening to him like that. And
right.
But all that said, all that aside, I agree with Silberg here. I actually like Howard Bryant, and Zyron is my homeboy. So, I can tolerate them as well. But
that's what I appreciate what they're doing, and shout out to, not that I'm anybody to be appreciating. It'll be like, who the hell is Hiram? Nobody. Killer. Hiram's nobody. But you know what I'm saying? It's a breath of fresh air. It's cool what they're doing. I think I could watch it for like a little bit, but I need my stats and my numbers and those things.
Okay, I hear you. So I don't know. So like, yeah, I don't know exactly where you wanted to go next. I mean, I was disturbed by everything you said about we watched a lot of the commercials in this house. That's what we did see a lot of what I think are a lot of the commercials.
Right.
And they were a mess. We covered a little on the morning show today, the connection between the religion and the NFL. I mean, it was a lot. And then it was reported that it was the most watched sporting event in history. In this country, at least, or in NFL history. I'd have to double check. Did it really really outdo like World Cup finals and stuff?
I doubt it. I doubt that. I think those stats reflect the U.S. The Super Bowl.
Yeah. That's what.
But you do see more, which is a trip, right? That the most watched in the U.S., the most expensive Super Bowl tickets by far, right? So to sit in the bleachers, you were spending, I think the average ticket cost was somewhere around $9,000, $9,000 plus average ticket. Right, they had the VIP seating, like the club, in one of the end zones. The amount of celebrities that were there, from Ice Spice to Bad Bunny to Taylor to Bieber to a whole bunch of other folks I never heard of because I'm too old. It's Yip is funny.
Is it true Kanye got kicked out? What happened?
Yip is talking about my couch. I'm already getting clowned in the chat. I'm gonna stop looking at the chat.
Really?
I don't know about Kanye, but the amount of folks that were there, right, continue to turn this into an event that, a lot of the anti-Taylor Swift folks, sports fans who were really upset at the NFL for having that. I think it leads into a lot of, patriarchy and misogyny and stuff like that. I get it, like, being annoyed about folks who aren't really overtly football fans and stuff like that. But I think it leads us. But just the amount of like celebrity that this event has turned into, while at the same time seeing the shift in terms of the commercials go from really creative ways to sell us Doritos, beer cans, playing football, puppies jumping around with, doing stuff. And now you have these overtly political messages, these overtly like hardcore religious messages that you didn't really see anymore. The Super Bowl played on Telemundo, Univision, ESPN Deportes, right? The Super Bowl played on Nickelodeon. I don't know if you saw that, which was dope. I'm not gonna lie. Capitalism is dope at what it does and in its marketing, right? But
Get them kids.
they played games on Nickelodeon, and so it was SpongeBob and Patrick who were announcing the game with like real live
Oh
analysts
wow.
talking about. And then when there's like a tackle, there's like a cloud of smoke that pops up. There's like all kinds of graphics that pops up for the kids to make
Oh
them a
wow.
part of this initiation at this point, if you will, right, into US society. It's consumerism, it's militarism, it's and what football means to all of that, and what the game of football has always meant to the projection of US society, but a US masculinity that goes back to the right. And Dave Zirin has a great piece on the Edge of Sports video on this, of the history of the game of football, starting with the Ivy Leagues, where it was a game of the rich, a white elite who they had seen at that time. And these are the early, like late 1800s, right? Around the times of the colonization of the Caribbean and the Philippines and all that, who they had seen that the U.S. male, especially the affluent ones, were becoming too effeminate. They said they were too studied, they were too effeminate, and so they have this game of football that was supposed to be intentionally militaristic, intentionally violent and strategic, like the military, to build up that masculinity in men. And so the amount of boys that were dying playing football in the very early years was staggering, to the point where they tried to ban the game. And it was Theodore Roosevelt who was like, absolutely not. Right? We're going to play this game. And, Zirin talks about this, saying that where he said if one of his boys, one of his sons dies on that field, he'd much rather have that than have some effeminate, what I'm saying, son or whatever's in that. And so the game of football purposely is created as a class signifier, but also a reimagining and projection of a type of violent masculinity, militaristic masculinity that was being projected to the U.S. at the time, moving into the world wars, the First World War, and all that. And it continues that trend today, right? It continues it. It continues it now. Uh, and so you see
Wow.
that with the overt military, uh, the flag waving, the flyovers, the Star Spangled Banner, right? Before 2008, players were not required to stand for the national anthem or even be on the field for the national anthem, right? You get your first flyover in 1968, the Orange Bowl. The 1968 Orange Bowl is like some of the first flyovers right before Nixon gets uh, elected president during the whole Vietnam War, when the rise of the anti-Vietnam struggle is happening. Senator John McCain, Mr. Vietnam himself, he and another senator, Flake, right? They funded a report that came out in 2015. It said from 2012 to 2015, the Department of Defense has spent $53 million on what they called paid patriotism. So these sports teams from MLB, from the NHL, from the NFL, the NBA get paid millions of dollars, sometimes 100,000, sometimes millions of dollars, to specific teams to honor National Guardsmen who have come home, to do the flyovers, to do the flag waving, to do, right, to drum up that support militarily. So from your college sports, all that. So none of it is out of just pure patriotism. It's intentional and has always been intentional through this game that a lot of us enjoy. A lot of us enjoy watching. The NFL, I watch. I love college football. I love college football. But just the money and the stuff behind that is you can't turn a blind eye to that. But I mean,
Yeah. No, go ahead. I mean, I haven't, man, I've really checked out over the last decade or so. I really have, yeah, it's wild. Yeah, Obi, I stay on YouTube. Hiram reads and knows everything. I'm just on YouTube. I don't watch these games. I don't Uh, but I do try to follow some of it. I've tried to follow a little bit of the money in college football, the NIL stuff. Is fascinating. But in fact, I've seen it argued that the old guard in college football are retiring in terms of coaching because they can't handle this new arrangement where they don't have as much power over the players and the players' pockets as they used to. But I haven't paid enough attention to know, is it really making any kind of significant difference or
Yeah,
improvement in any way, or what?
that I think that's a different like that, and that could be its whole
Yeah.
other show, right? But basically, in a nutshell, college football is changing, and college football has now become and is moving closer to becoming the minor leagues of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And what has happened was that when the players at Northwestern University years ago started to try to unionize,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of this stuff starts happening with the O'Bannon brothers at
Mm-hmm.
UCLA basketball with the name and likeness, using their images and stuff on video games, but not paying the players, right? Using their names on jerseys that you sell on the internet, but not paying the players and suing for that. And then when the Northwestern players started trying to unionize and say they are workers, right? That college football players are not student athletes, they're workers who generate for places like the University of Texas up to $60 million just off ticket sales and stuff alone. That's not including the TV revenue money that comes in and all the other stuff that makes hundreds of millions of dollars for these universities based off of what the boys are doing on the field. And so what happened was to curtail that and to undermine that struggle, they allowed the name and likeness to be instrumental where now players can be paid and be given contracts for commercials for the use of their name and likeness and get money for that. And then what has also happened is the transfer portal has been opened up. And so now players can hop into the transfer portal and go from school to school, basically like free agents. And so what's happening is that if you're playing at the University of Miami and you're not getting enough play time for whatever reason, me at Notre Dame can say, well, Jared, how about you come over here? You'll be our starting quarterback or whatever, and we can guarantee you an NIL for $500,000. We can guarantee you an NIL for $5 million, and they're doing that. And so now the control of players and their movement and where they're at isn't as easy as it was way back when you could just hang a scholarship over their head and demand that they do all of these things. Right? These boys are in those gyms from like 5 o'clock in the morning all the way until like the evening time, watching film and lifting and all that. And so it becomes the minor leagues of the NFL because now there is the myth of amateurism is completely gone away in college football. That's a super crash
And
course into what's happening and why these coaches now,
yeah,
well, I'm just leaving because I can't control these boys. Because before it was only the coaches who could leave whenever they want for millions of
that's
dollars.
right.
Now, right when the rabbits got the gun, now they're like, oh, I don't like this, so I'm
I like,
out.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to ZZ Lion. I thought about this. Did you send me this, Hiram, this commercial about the African connection with Lil Boy dreaming of
No,
making it with a beautiful stadium training facility in the middle of Savannah, Africa, with African players training?
no.
I can't remember who. Forgive me for whoever sent it to me, but it did lead me to looking up just a story like this here, where the NFL says it's turning to Africa to build a market beyond the U.S. And in the commercial, I think it's OCU and Euro,
OC.
who
Mm-hmm.
is, yeah, and you see this little boy in Ghana running through the streets in Accra or wherever, and he's pretending he's playing football, and they have all these CGI'd NFL players like he's imagining running up against, and then he ends up at this camp led by OC and saying, when I was your age, I was dreaming of playing too, and then this whole thing. And the first thing I thought when I saw it was similar to what's being said here, that NFL's turning to Africa to build a new market. I saw it as they're looking for an expansion of the player pool, given all the CTE concerns,
Yeah.
or and a need to replenish the natural resource of players. So yeah, if we're gonna run out of the Africans over here, let's go to the motherland and restock up. It's
Right. It was called out in the chat. Imperialism. It's
yeah.
imperialism, right? It's this imperial power going up, seeking resources and also opening up markets. right? And
Yeah.
so it's both and so it is opening up the market to these countries, right? So that you can sell them this product, but it's also mining for new resources, which are new players. Major League Baseball has done this really well for the last 15, 20 years with the baseball academies, right? And so the Caribbean World Series either just finished or I think it just finished. I don't know. I stopped watching when Puerto Rico got eliminated, right? Um, but you have the Caribbean World Series, you have the World Baseball Classic. There were superpowers. There were teams that were very good all the time, right? Puerto Rico historically has been good. Cuba historically has been good. The Dominican Republic has historically been good. And now you see teams coming out of Mexico, teams in Curacao, places that traditionally didn't play baseball, Panama, right? Places that were like soccer heavy becoming baseball powerhouses because what Major League Baseball did was they said, look, we found this loophole. We can go to these other countries. The Dominican Republic specifically is where they kind of started. The DR and Venezuela is where they mainly do this. We can set up these baseball academies. These baseball academies, we can frame them as schools, say that they're schools. We get boys ages 12 to 14, 15, all around the country, bring them into these academies. They live at these academies and they get trained by Major League Baseball trainers, right, in the fundamentals of baseball to build up their skills at a rapid pace. We'll also teach them some school, but basically they're there to learn baseball. Once they hit 18, 17, 18 years old, we can sign them to minor league contracts and then bring them to the U.S. If they pan out, like David Ortiz, right, like Miguel Tejada, like all these different folks, then boom, we cash in because we can just sign them to our team directly. What you saw was an explosion of Dominican baseball superstars. It's not to take anything away. I know my Dominican friends are like, here you go, Hiram, with that shit, right? It's not to take away from the talent that has always come out of DR, but there was an explosion for those of you who watch Major League Baseball from like the early 2000s up until now of like just Dominicans dominating Major League Baseball. And a lot of it had to do with, and Venezuelans as well, right? A lot of it had to do with these baseball academies. The problem with the baseball academies is that not every young man makes it to Major League Baseball. And so while you're searching for your Miguel Tejada, you're searching for David Ortiz, you're searching for Acuna, you're searching for these folks, there's hundreds of other young men who don't make it, who blow out their ACLs, who blow out their MCLs, who don't make it. But they didn't learn anything. And so the amount of brain drain that happens. And so what happens, a lot of these young men stay in the country and they become taxi drivers in New York, or they become something else, or they go back home and don't have any real skills because they spent their whole time playing baseball. And there's a brain drain that ends up happening in the DR as a result of these baseball academies when the New York Mets, the Red Sox, the Yankees can come into your town, basically buy the town, set up the infrastructure, right? Because it's a neo-colonial country. So a lot of the issues with the Dominican Republic around Haiti, around all this stuff, is because they are a colony. Not in the same way that Puerto Rico is, but not that different either. Right? And so Major League Baseball is there siphoning these boys. And they do it in Panama. They do it in Mexico. They're doing it all over because the difference is that I can spend money in developing Jared Ball in the DR where he doesn't go to the draft as opposed to spending money on Little League Baseball here in the U.S. that could develop young children in the U.S., but they go into the draft. And then there's no guarantee that I can sign them. And what that impact has been now has been a significant decrease in African-American baseball players. Damn near what? About 50 years since Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier?
Are
And
there
now,
any? The last time I looked, they said there was one player,
very
one Black
there's a little
American.
no there's a
Okay.
few more, but it's very, you have teams who have no Black Americans, which was unheard of. You also have a significant decline in Puerto Rican baseball players, right? Which was also like, yeah, Puerto Ricans because they go into the draft, and that's Puerto Rico's colonial reality.
Right.
They go into the draft. So it's like, so why are we going to spend money developing baseball players in Puerto Rico, baseball players in urban neighborhoods, right? When we can just go to the DR and get them for cheap and sign them for cheap. And this is what the NFL is trying to do on the continent, right? It's sports imperialism. And so those of us who are sports fans and who love these teams, we have a responsibility to educate ourselves on what exactly, because nothing in the US happens without a cost to someone somewhere else in the world, unfortunately. Not our sneakers, not our cell phones, not our MacBooks, nothing that we consume here in this country, right, doesn't come without a cost to someone around the world. And it's on us to understand that and know that, and then hopefully do something about that. Right. And now what does that look like? It's like, well, I don't go to too many games, right? I don't spend money. I don't buy merchandise. I may watch it on TV, right? But I try to like limit that interaction because of the extreme impacts it has, because it is imperialism. And in this moment of capitalism in decline, of a US hegemon in decline, it is no shock that they use their sports. The Olympics are coming to LA in 2028. The World Cup is coming to the US in 2026. None of this is by accident, right? As they use sports to try to maintain that hegemony over the rest of the world.
So just quickly, and we don't have to stay here, but I got sent a couple things here. So according to the Mail Online, I think out of the UK, Taylor Swift got Kanye West kicked out of the stadium at the Super Bowl after he bought tickets directly in front of her VIP suite to steal the limelight. Ex-NFL player incredibly claims. So at least there's a claim that happened. I think that's hilarious if it did. But then I also got sent, speaking of Kanye, all this is coming in, or I'm recognizing it rapid fire. I don't know. He said something about
the thoughts on the Palestinians.
I don't have enough information on that. I'm straight up from south side of Chicago, born in Atlanta. I don't have that. I don't have enough information. It's love for everybody, but don't pull me to that conversation. I got 14 kids dying every week in my city. You know what I'm saying? So talk to me about that.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now he doesn't have an opinion on something? My bad. Okay.
I ain't got no words. I ain't got no words for Mr. West. I mean that.
All right, so we can move on. Let's move on.
To use a Philly phrase here, since I've been here long, nut ass ninja. I don't got nothing to say about that nut ass. Him and his nut ass like takes.
All right. Okay, so that's okay. So I used. There's a couple things I wanted to ask you, and then I'll check back with the chat for their comments, questions, and anything else. But and then obviously whatever you have left to get to. But Biden's tweet comes out. I used it for the thumbnail. The claim from his camp is that it was just a somewhat of a comical reference to what was going to happen with the game, not what happened with Rafa. People are doing a lot with it. I'm making use of it. How do you think it should be interpreted as it relates to what you've been talking about?
I was watching when you were talking with Jared today on millennials killing capitalism. First and foremost, it is incredibly tasteless. It's incredibly tasteless. It's incredibly disrespectful. I agree with what Jared was saying in that it was them being funny and trolling the large numbers of folks who felt that the NFL is scripted. And this is the thing, you and I spoke about this a little bit, right? The social media, AI, what all this stuff has done to our collective like mindsets and thinking is a trip where everyone doesn't believe, like folks just don't believe anything anymore, right? The NBA is scripted. The NFL is scripted, right? Wilt Chamberlain never scored 100 points because like it's wild that people believe this, that Taylor Swift is a plant and that Taylor Swift's and Kelsey's relationship is fake because the goal was to get them to the Super Bowl to give her this platform upon then which she was going to endorse Joe Biden for president. And that is the narrative that has been right throughout social media. And it's a trip. And it's a whole like wave of folks who believe that. And so the Biden folks tweet this out to kind of like mock those folks, to troll those folks, because they tend to lean to the right. They tend to be more Trump supporters, but not exclusively. Definitely not exclusively Trump supporters. And so it's just like, oh, well, we're trolling those folks. They're like just how we wrote it, right? They win the Super Bowl, Taylor Swift wins, and yada, yada, yada. But it can't be ignored. And there is no way in hell that the White House doesn't know that this game is being played while the people of Palestine and the people of Gaza, who have been pushed to the south for months and months now, have been pushed to the south, are being bombed to death in this sort of final solution of this Holocaust that we have been watching for up to almost 130 days. And there is no way in hell that they don't understand that that is going to be taken as also trolling the folks who are going to call the question, rightfully so, the fact that Israel purposely used this event, right, which they'll say, no, we didn't, purposely used this event to do what they were doing while folks were going to be focused on Patrick Mahomes chasing Tom Brady's greatness and Usher's abs. Usher Raymond, who shortly after October 7th had posted a big Star of David on his Instagram saying, I stand with Israel, and then quickly took it off, right? Very quickly lined up to show and stand in line in his support of the Israeli regime. And so for them to, with those eyes, those demonic eyes, and to be like, no, this is just about Taylor Swift, I call bullshit. There is no way that you can be that tone deaf. There is no way that a sitting president and his administration and his communications team is going to make some little mistake, or you could read it at that, but we didn't intend it. That's BS. Because even if you didn't, and it was trolling the folks who are saying this is about Taylor Swift and her nomination of Joe Biden and all of that stuff, fine. You still did it while this atrocity is happening. Now is not the time to be saying what football team you're rooting for. Now is not the time to be trolling football fans. Now is not the time, especially when you paid for that. You paid for that. That is only allowed to happen because you paid for it. And it's not because you've been duped, because folks are like, well, why, I got questioned. My man's questioned me is like, well, why do you think he even want to do that? If that would just hurt his elections, because he don't care, because he's been bought and paid for since the beginning. We've seen the video of this man on the Hill talking about if Israel didn't exist, we'd have to create one. The politician who's been paid the most money by AIPAC in the history of AIPAC. That man don't care. They're going to roll out and roll the boogeyman of Trump on us because they know it's guaranteed. They're going to do the same thing, the same trope. It's going to have to be black women to save democracy again. Y'all better keep eyes on those black men who want to vote Trump. Right? They keep playing all these games to divide us, to toy with us in the boogeyman. He paid for that. He ain't worried about no votes. Because ultimately, this is a ruling class dictatorship. And he's not the one who rules the country. Not to get into Illuminati stuff, right? And reptilians and all that. But he is accountable to a class of people who they both serve. Every sitting U.S. president serves that class. And that class's interest. And if that class's interest is to decimate Gaza, eradicate those people once and for all, take the land so you could build beachfront properties, but more importantly, so you could frack it and you could dig for oil and natural gas off the coast of what is currently Palestinian land, legally Palestinian territory, then that's what they're going to do, regardless of who is sitting in that seat. He ain't worrying about your votes. They're worried about that gas. They're worried about those pipelines. They're worried about those new shipping routes that doesn't have to go through the Suez, but they can create a whole different one. So you don't have to run into these problems that they have with these shady Arabs. And so when you put those eyes, those red beams, you can't tell me that somewhere in there is also a hat tip to that. But you create an out. No. It's not about that. It's about Taylor Swift. Ain't no way in hell. The president of the United States, that's what you tweet amidst. We all saw the pictures of that young woman, that poor child who had their whole blown off, hanging off of them. The amount I've spent 130 days just on Instagram watching children tremble, watching mothers tremble, watching men tremble, watching people who I don't know in what laboratory Palestinian people were created to be able to continue to have the wherewithal and the courage and the ability to keep standing, to keep fighting, to keep pushing while seeing that, while experiencing that. I'm only on Instagram and I have to turn my phone off because I can't take it sometimes. To live it. And you gonna troll Taylor Swift? Nah, you ain't trolling Taylor Swift. You letting us all know. You letting us all know. Because they're not worried about what happens in November. We're gonna remember this in November. They don't care. It's a ruling class dictatorship. It doesn't matter who's in that seat. Are there differences? Yes, there will be differences or whatever, but ultimately it's in the interest of the ruling class. It is in the interest of those corporate elites. It's in the interest and the bottom lines of Nancy Pelosi, all the way to Jeff Bezos, right? To Elon Musk, to all these people. All of that class partnerships, and it's a Gramsci quote, and I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but it's a meme where it's like the Obamas and the Bushes and the Clintons are all hugging together, right? And it's like this whole class project is consolidated in the state. This is where all these pieces of the ruling class, right? The ruling class relationships and all of their pieces are consolidated in the state. It's corporate interest, it's military interest, it's political interest, it's social control. From the playing field to our schools, from the media we consume to the food we eat. And we are in a very particular moment in history where all that is being shaken, is being challenged in a way that it hasn't been challenged and probably has never been challenged in the history before. And this is why, with this growing fascism and this growing, right, where we're moving towards, and this country really violently trying to hold on to its place in the world, a sitting US president will have a picture of himself with glowing red demonic eyes tweeted out to the world, next to children with half their torsos blown completely off. This goes deeper than remember this in November. Folks will be like, remember this in November. Man, this goes beyond November. We are in a fight for our lives. We are in a fight for our grandchildren's lives. We're in a fight for our great-grandchildren's lives. And they ain't never, to quote Wise Intelligence, they ain't never needed no rapper to do that. They ain't never needed no football player to do that. But they will use them. They will use it, which is why you had them all in that arena on Sunday. Shit, even Robert Kraft, Black History Month. Well, you didn't watch the game. One of the commercials was funded by Robert Kraft's Foundation Against Anti-Semitism. I think is the name. It's like Foundation Against Anti-Semitism. That funded a commercial with Dr. I'm forgetting
Clarence Brown. No, I saw that. I didn't hear the audio in its entirety because there was so much noise in our living room, but I did see it, and I saw it again when you sent it to me.
Right, they're using Dr. King.
First of all, I looked it up, and I admit I was rushing, but I looked it up, and from what I looked up, they call him a speechwriter. He contributed to one speech, to the I Have a Dream speech, and has basically made a career off of that, apparently. So everything that King was doing from particularly 66 on that made him a threat and a target for assassination more than ever, not that he wasn't after 63, had nothing to do with this speechwriter all of a sudden. But it's perfect that they would use that to try to ossify King in that I Have a Dream version that they would accept us to know, and then use that and then they would throw in a little bit of don't hate Muslims, don't hate this or that one, but it was primarily stop anti-Jewish hate. And if you can stop hating some others on the way, that's fine too, but just don't hate Jews. And it's a complete sidetrack from the actual conversation, because the critique is not of Jews, it's of Zionism, it's of colonialism, it's of genocide. So nobody's hating Jews who aren't actively supporting Zionist genocidal aggression. So it's a false. Right. The whole thing is false. And then to use King to do it. I mean, but to your point, I mean, and I did see that. I saw that very graphic. And to see the people struggling to get her body down. I mean, but that's so abusing King. My point is, I'm trying to get to abusing King posthumously is nothing. That's obviously light work after you've happily wiped out all these children and people, other people, I mean, but
it's that disrespect. It's again that continuous disrespect, right, to the Black radical struggle in this country, to Black history, to Dr. King,
who said himself, the Israel got to give up the land if they want it to end. My bad.
But then you also have folks who have seen, right, who've been online, who have said that civil rights and all that wouldn't be nothing if it wasn't for the Jewish people, right, who try to lay claim to the civil rights struggle, who lay claim to Dr. King, right, who do that, who invent there is a rise in violence against Jews, which I don't see. And I keep asking all of the Jewish folks who I know, like, where's this threat? Have you heard? Where, right? They don't see it. They don't see it. But this same Robert Kraft, who owns the New England Patriots, funds this commercial purposely with the man, right, who was connected to Dr. King to promote that. But Robert Kraft, through his foundation, also promotes trips to Israel for NFL players. And so he does throughout the year is bring NFL players to Israel so that they can bash in the sun and the Mediterranean Sea and all that, and then come back and speak well of the regime. They say, oh, my bad, this Zoom thing pops and does a stuff, right? The Draymond Green did it, right? They go to these IDF camps. Jerry Seinfeld did it. They go to these IDF camps. They get to play with the guns. They get to act like they're terrorizing, Palestinian people, and then come back, talk about what a wonderful time they had over there. Purposely using Black people and Black people of influence, Black people who have influence over young minds, because we're watching it. Young minds like mine, right? But you're watching these athletes in these sports that you love so much, and they're teasing in a little bit of this politic. Robert Kraft, who does that, the owner of the New York Mets, right? Steve Cohen, who also funds settlements and stuff in Israel. The Ballmer, Steve Ballmer, who owns the Clippers, who through his foundation also funds illegal settlements in Israel.
But as long as he doesn't bring his Black girlfriends to the game and chastise them for hanging out with other Black people, he's fine. He's fine.
But you know what else they don't have to do? Because the Israeli regime, right? They have that commercial about dads. Bring the dads home. Bring the hostages. You didn't see that commercial, right? There's a whole commercial about the importance of fathers, the importance of dads, and they show dads playing with their children. And then they say, bring the dads home, right? Release the hostages. Dads that their F-15 fighter planes blow up inside of Gaza. Dads that their military are instructed to eliminate as well, if it means, right, they're under their Hannibal directive, if it means continuing the process of genocide in Gaza. But they pay $7 million to run an ad for the U.S. people who are watching the Super Bowl for these hostages that they have spent 130 days also killing, and openly saying that we are not bringing home. Because Netanyahu just finished saying that last week. We reject any ceasefire. We're not going to accept anything about bringing people home. But you're going to run an ad on the same day that you bombing all these folks, bring the dads home? And then what didn't they do, Jared Ball? What did they have to do, Mr. Jared Ball? They don't have to openly acknowledge that that ad is paid for by a foreign government. But you can attack Redstream. You can take RT off of social media. The New York Times can run a hit piece on the People's Forum and Breakthrough News and all these things about supposedly trying to link them to the Chinese Communist Party, saying that they're paid agents of the Chinese Communist Party, with the threats that comes with that of the federal government then rounding all these people under the guise that they are agents of the Chinese Communist Party. But Israel doesn't have to say that this ad is paid for by a foreign government. Robert Kraft doesn't have to say that this is paid for right on behalf of a foreign government. When you have the attention of what you said was the most people, this goes into the $53 million. $53 million that was spent for paid patriotism. Add that on top of that. The Pat Tillman stuff. Pat Tillman, former Cardinals player, Pat Tillman, who took off after 9/11 in that patriotic hoopla, joined the army, and then got killed by his own folks in Iraq. Killed by his own soldiers in Iraq because he was writing home to his mother saying, "Nah, we don't got no business being here. This was a mistake. This was all wrong." They killed him and then turned him into a martyr, where the NFL every year is waving that Pat Tillman jersey, when Pat Tillman himself wrote to his mother and said, "This is wrong. We shouldn't be here."
By the way, the official story of Pat Tillman's death is not better. It doesn't make the military look, it makes him maybe slightly better than actually intentionally killing him to silence him, because it's all shrouded in ignorant leadership, ignoring on the ground suggestions, bad communication, and it led to somebody, according to them, shooting on a hill that they didn't even know was their own men, because the person who told them not to do that was being ignored by a higher up who didn't know what he was doing. That's the official story.
Right.
And by the way, while I've interrupted you here again, I just watched this morning, early this morning, an Air Force, I think it was a military-sponsored thing, an Air Force a video about the newest version of the F-15 fighter jet that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and they ran a simulation in some. The point was to demonstrate how powerful one jet is. They put it in a simulator and had two people simulate flying in this two-person jet fighting against the entire Japanese fleet during the invasion of Pearl Harbor. The question was, could one of these jets have stopped the invasion of Pearl Harbor? And they demonstrated that it could have, that it was that's how powerful this one jet is, that it sank 6 carriers and was able to then avoid all the rest of the launched aircraft that in that. So I'm just saying, this is the amount of firepower that this country is spending to use against people in tents who are being told that they're in a safe zone and have had a chance to escape. That's what they're doing. I mean, it's sickness upon sickness upon sickness.
While Beyonce, in a Verizon commercial, announces she's got a new album coming out, because Jay-Z had joined the whole NFL thing, right? To support, and what he did was kill the Colin Kaepernick protest movement.
Yep.
Said we don't have to kneel anymore.
We're past that.
We're past kneeling, right? And all he did was negotiate halftime shows, because the folks who do the halftime shows aren't paid, right? So performers aren't paid to perform at halftime, but what it is, exposure. And so the amount of money, the millions and millions that they said Usher Raymond has made about $55 million, $58 million off that halftime show, just due to the exposure. People downloading his records, people downloading his songs, people doing, right, all the various companies that he owns. And so it's used, right? And Jay-Z did that. And then Beyonce comes and announces the new for Verizon, right? The new album. While, to your point, there's a supposed war going on at the same time, where one side has an army, an air force, a navy, a secret service, nuclear bombs, and the other side has homeless mothers, fathers, and children with no water, no food, nowhere to go. And then again, we come back and we're supposed to believe that the president of the United States isn't conscious of this when they're tweeting this Terminator looking image. So was it intentionally for that? No, it probably wasn't intentional. It probably was like, again, going after the conspiracy theorists around Taylor Swift and all that. But is it completely just that? No. There's no way.
So if I can, shout out to Josh, who corrected me. I was rushing and I didn't go far enough. So in the initial tweet where Kanye says he doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't know anything, apparently he had already released a cut or an unreleased cut called God Got Me, in which apparently he acknowledges he does know what he's talking about.
So my homegirl, right, she fighting for Palestine because it's her people, and she said, you have no idea how much this means to me. It's been a conversation for me and my family since my father was taken from his home of Palestine in 1948. And I will never back down, and I will always stand up for humanity, no matter the backlash, because I know in my heart what is right, regardless of what people think of me. And I said, you in full mode, kid. Very few know what it means to have the #1 spot in their profession and not be afraid to fight for their beliefs. You're like the warrior queen on the front line for your people. This strength is something different, non-superficial.
I don't know. So my bad. Thanks, Josh, for that. So just throwing that in there so we can,
folks can play dumb.
Accuracy. Mm-hmm.
Folks can play dumb, right? And they know what side their bread is buttered on, right? All those celebrities. I saw an article with the amount of celebrities that were there, and they were ranking where they stand on this issue. I think there was one, I forgot, it's someone who I don't know, stood for Palestine. Others stood for Israel, and the majority of them, Bad Bunny, all of them included, no comment. I have nothing to say about this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in addition to what you've said about the messaging, I mean, from what I hear from my daughters about their school, what I hear from my students about what goes on at our university, there is they're all being left to the mainstream media or to their own devices to find out what the hell is going on. Apparently, other faculty, I've heard all week, actually the last 2 weeks, it has to be an exaggeration. They can't be correct. But I keep hearing from students that I'm the only one talking about it in the class. I
asked my son. My son is a freshman. He goes to high school in Long Island. I asked him, do your teachers talk about this? And he's like, no. I'm like, nothing at all? Like, no.
Yeah, my daughters don't get any. But even I thought, at least at the university, I would have thought there would have been some. And I'm sure there is. I can't really be the only one. But it's wild.
But Mr. Jared, right? What are they gonna say? What are they gonna say? Right? You either openly condone and support genocide, fascist Nazism, or you leave it alone because they can't swing the other way. Right? So the best thing for you is just to shut up, or you openly, because how can you defend that? How can you defend fathers walking around with plastic bags that hold the pieces of their children in them? How can you defend the torso of a young woman on a wall? How can you defend the destruction of mosques and universities and libraries and whole neighborhoods, and then you throw raves on it? How can you defend those people throwing a party as they block aid trucks from coming in to bring people food? How can you defend the pogroms and the torturing and the mass killings that are happening in the West Bank at the hands of settlers? How can you defend the spitting on Gentiles and Christians, right, in Jerusalem and all that? How can you defend all of that? How can you defend 600,000 of those settlers hold U.S. passports and bring that back here? How do you defend the other hundreds of millions of hold passports to countries throughout Europe and bring that back over there? How do you defend that, right? The anti-Semitism, when most of the anti-Semitism is coming from them themselves, because Zionism is anti-Semitic. Because Theodore Herzl was an atheist who could give two craps about Judaism. How do you defend that? How do you defend the appropriation and the misframing of international horror that was the Holocaust in Europe, to use that as cover for a mass Holocaust and genocide in 2020, 24, 23? How you defend that? You'd be a madman. You got to be Joe Biden to defend that. You got to be Joe Biden to sit there and defend that.
So, but my point is simply that, and I agree, but similar to sort of in response to people being afraid to lose their jobs. If I understand that, but for the most part, either if I did like this, I wore my "Make Israel Palestine Again" T-shirt. I got to find that. I got to get one of them. But if you're an educator, I think you have to find a way to raise it. You can try to be objective. You can try to be balanced. You can try to make room for both sides. You could do whatever you need to do. But to say that there's no conversation, that no students can raise questions, that nobody can say anything. And then to your point, Hiram, if they do agree with what Israel's doing, and you have all the political protection and all of that, then how dare you not raise it in class and put your Zionism on the table and let students hear it, or again try to be objective in that from that but the silencing of it, I think, is
because you got it because they have a role to play, right, in molding the minds in this dictatorship that we talked about. So you don't want your students and all these folks to know, yeah, this is a fascist government. Yeah, this is a terroristic or whatever. You have to keep instilling that myth of democracy and liberty and justice in the students. And so for them, it is a political move to not say nothing that falls in line with what the U.S. wants its citizens to believe, that it trusts it is an unbiased, right, objective view of democracy, of liberty, of freedom, and all that. Not what we're doing. And so my red eyes are for Taylor Swift. They're not for what these folks are going to be telling you, that I paid for the Holocaust and the genocide that you're watching in real time on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right. It falls into line, because I need you to believe in that same democracy come November, when we roll out the boogeyman of Donald Trump. And so to your point, it is the responsibility of those teachers to push back, to find some way, bringing it back to sports. The European leagues, right? The European leagues for soccer have banned flags in their stadiums. And it has been the brave people of Ireland who have been like, to hell with that.
Not just there. It's been elsewhere.
It's not just there, elsewhere too,
yeah,
right?
But
to hell with that.
Yeah.
Right? Because as sports fans, it's like, you also have a responsibility. All right, look, I'm engaged in this. This is one of like my guilty vices. We live in capitalism. There is no way around it. We engage in it every single day because we're forced to. Right? So you watch these sports because I enjoy the sport. But I'm also going to do something that breaks that. I'm not going to just go along with this. I'm going to make some sort of intervention. I'm going to do something. And so the soccer, right, in the sport of soccer, and the soccer fans have definitely shown us as sports fans, what can that look like? The players themselves as well, right? What can that look like?
But then again, they're also, throwing monkeys and calling people ends and all types of stuff too. So it's a whole lot of,
and that's gonna keep
banana
happening.
peels and whatnot into the field and all of that.
That's gonna keep happening, Mr. Jared, until we get organized. And until we realize that, we can't vote our way out of this, and that we are in a struggle for life and death. And like I was saying on Millennials Killing Capitals, right? George Jackson said it. We don't got no time. What are we waiting for? For them to get it right, for them to imagine. And then what's going to be left? A desert? What will be left with? with climate change. What else are we waiting for? The only way you defeat that is by transforming the systems in which these athletics are played, this music is being generated, this education system is being run. And that only happens through revolutionary struggle that can only be brought about through revolutionary organizations. And until we understand that and decide and make that choice to get into the fight, because revolution is a fight, revolution is violence, then yeah, we're just gonna be sitting here like, I can't believe they did this. I can't believe they did that. Well, golly, we have a choice to make. I have a choice to make. We all have a choice to make. I can sit up here on this beautiful YouTube and talk all day wonderful things. Don't mean nothing if I'm not doing something, if I'm not getting in the fight. And at some point in time, us as sports fans, us as citizens, us everybody have to get in the fight. You have to get in the fight, or else nothing is going to change. Nothing's going to transform. And we're all going to go into the hellfire. And unfortunately, for the majority of the world, of the global South, they've been living in the hellfire. Those people in Syria, those people in Yemen, those people in Qatar, the people in the Congo, in the Sudan, in Somalia, they've been living in absolute hell of biblical proportions. We're that last line. And when we start feeling it, we're like, oh, wow, things are getting bad. But for us to feel it getting bad, that means that it is pure dystopian hellscape for the rest of the world that they've been living. Folks in India, folks in Bangladesh, folks, the list can keep going on and on and on and on. Hell, folks in Puerto Rico, folks going to vacation all the time. Damn near 60, 70% of Puerto Rico lives on some sort of public assistance. When are we gonna say enough is enough? When are we gonna get in the fight? When are we gonna stop playing games and do what has to be done? George Jackson again. Patience is a virtue. Too much patience becomes cowardice.
Even
Too much
King
patience
had a
is
version
cowardice.
of that. Yeah. Just quickly, why not learn what was George Jackson's strategy for revolution? I don't know, Hiram, how much you want to say on it, but please just
Blood
start with blood in my eye.
Blood in my eye. Comrade George was a Marxist Leninist, and so he believed in revolutionary organizations, right? Working with the masses to bring about a violent revolutionary struggle to topple the current system at hand. George was also very clear that the United States is a special place given its settler colonial reality. And what George said is that this revolution can go in two ways, in blood in my eye. It could be a violent class war that topples this system and basically brings about socialism for everybody, or it very easily and very likely could just turn into a race war. And that it was up to basically leftist white folks to keep their family members at bay and to fix that, because any revolution that starts in the United States very quickly could just turn into a race war. And in a country that is still, what, I think like 70-something% them, right? We're significantly outnumbered in a country that also has over 400 million guns, most of them not residing in Chicago, right? But with them, it's a very likely reality for folks who dream and fantasize about the Civil War, who dream and fantasize, who comes from their Turner diaries. If you all have ever read it, steal the book, find it somewhere else, because the only place you can find that book is on like Ku Klux Klan websites. But it is their Bible that speaks exactly of this Civil War, this impending Civil War. But that's what George says. Revolutionary struggle through revolutionary, Marxist revolutionary organizations.
Well said. Look, before we start to move anywhere, I definitely want to take a moment to have you break down what you were telling me in Newark about the Super Bowl we should have seen or were hoping to have seen. So we saw Kansas City versus San Francisco, but at one point there was a chance where we might have seen Detroit versus Baltimore. And I want you to break down for us, what you were saying to me that day about what that would have meant and how we might have been able to make use of that in the work that we're involved in.
Man, Baltimore versus Detroit, again, has all kinds of subplots. So it would have been the story of Lamar Jackson finally being able to win his title. Lamar Jackson, who has been bemoaned and has been dismissed and disrespected with those racist tropes of he's just an extra running back there. He's not a real quarterback. Being able to prove wrong in the way that your beloved, right? Because you are a Commanders fan, right? Doug Williams did.
I was definitely when Doug was there. Absolutely.
Doug Williams did, right? Who wasn't a hybrid or running quarterback, who was a pocket passer and probably had the best, I think, performance that a quarterback has had in his Super Bowl. Detroit, who has never won a title. But more importantly, the cities of Baltimore and Detroit would have been put on the map, and they would have had the spotlight put on them. And there is no way that you can hide the dirtiness of Baltimore and Detroit and what has been done to those very black cities. And so while they would have made it like Eminem and whatever, what you're really looking at, right, are two very black cities. Some of the last few black cities that exist in this country who are facing intentional disinvestment, poverty, crime that happened from the neoliberal withdrawal of the factories that used to be in those cities, jobs that used to be in those cities, and left them in the conditions that they're in. And so what that Super Bowl would have looked like, man, it's like you have the eyes of the world, the biggest corporate show there is for the United States, the biggest. I mean, we are selling everything tonight. Everything is being sold to everybody. And there's no way that the stories of Baltimore, Black Baltimore, and Detroit was going to be ignored in that. And so we came close to putting that, like the contradiction of capitalism, that while you are selling everything and your mother literally in all languages and with SpongeBob and Patrick, here is the reality of capitalism. Here's what capitalism means for the majority of its people, and overwhelmingly the majority of its black people, upon who this capitalism and this country and this Super Bowl was made and built on from the beginning. As the Chiefs play in the Super Bowl instead, in an end zone that says Chiefs with the banner and racism above it, because why not? Because why not?
And they really are playing in our faces with stuff
playing
like
in
that.
our faces.
That's ridiculous.
Because we let them. Playing in our faces because we let them. When are we getting in the fight? When is enough enough? How the hell are you going to have end racism and then Chiefs with all these, you know what I'm saying, Mr. Charlie and his family in the stands doing all kinds of chops and whoas.
Yo. Yeah. That would have been, I mean, because I was even trying to think, just as you said, you were thinking of what celebrity would they have dragged out to represent Baltimore if they had Eminem for Detroit? Who would you even get? I mean, it's almost impossible to mask the nightmare in that city. It doesn't. There's almost nothing. What popular would they? I don't know.
It would be a DJ playing Baltimore club mixes of Eminem songs.
Oh, damn. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which I wouldn't be mad at. I'd be like, let's go. They probably borrow Uzi from Philly to come down and be like, let's get it popping. Which I wouldn't be mad at.
Michael Phelps. It had Michael Phelps and Eminem. That's it.
It'd be some local teenagers up there calling back stupid.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, when you were breaking that down to me, I was like, yo, that would have been great. That would have been great. They would have had less more. They'd have dragged him out and been like have him doing some Super Bowl thing. Welcome to the state of Maryland. Welcome, Monique. Maryland.
The state of Maryland. Stupid.
No, but he doesn't say Maryland. He says Maryland.
Nah, you would have.
I know he says Maryland. I know he doesn't say Maryland unless they coached him up. They must have coached him up. I know when he says it, I know he doesn't say it with that. He says Maryland.
No, even I know that in Connecticut.
No, Wale is DC. Crazy, careful, and even DC. I just happened to be I was invited when I was giving that talk at Bucknell. We were sitting around a table with the people that had invited me, and it was a sister from DC, and somebody mentioned Wale, and she went off. He ain't DC. This is that. Yep, there it is. PG County. Don't be. Maybe that was you. Was that you, sis? When you were Bucknell, it was the same argument. She was like, let me clarify the situation before anybody says anything else ridiculous. So no, it wouldn't have been Wale representing Baltimore. But the point is, I think what when you were saying that to me, I think there was still Baltimore was already losing the game. But there was my thumb. But it was very it was as hopeful as a moment I felt related to sports in a long time. Like that would have been dope.
Moment. The contradiction of capital. I think for all of us, those of us who are, not just in revolutionary organizations, which folks should join revolutionary organizations, join revolutionary parties, but those of you who are red, those of you who watch BPM all the time, those of us who listen to all of Dr. Ball's videos, and I don't think Dr. Ball gets enough credit for the amount of educating and politicizing and correct lining that he has done for so many of us and for so many people on these YouTube streets is to start pointing out the contradictions that exist in this capitalism to your friends, to your family. Use these moments, use the game, use that simple question. That simple question that Dr. Ball just posed, man, what would that have been like if Baltimore and Detroit would have played? Yeah, we could talk about Lamar Jackson and Jerry Goff and all these folks, and rightfully so. But there's like the cities, what would that have looked like? What would that have meant? Why do you think that is the way, right? And just enter from that point. There's a lot of opportunities for teachable moments in here, and there's a lot of contradictions that we are seeing today. That are people, because what we're going to move into is election period, and they're going to be knocking on your doors. They're going to be canvassing. They're going to be throwing Trump in your face. They're going to be, all up in your face about this democracy and yada. Don't forget what you've seen. Don't forget what happened on Sunday, but don't forget what happened on Sunday, 2023, 2022, 2024. Capitalism ain't never been right for us. Capitalism ain't never did us good. Look how they play in our faces on the biggest stage, and think that we're gonna ignore that because Beyonce comes out for Verizon and announces a whole new album.
Yeah, I missed that part too.
You got a whole you can have Jay-Z up on the Grammys talking about, my wife didn't get this award, didn't get this, didn't get that. You want to cry about recognition from the Grammys, but you're going to stop people from trying to get recognition or protesting the NFL for their racism, their complicitness in racism and all kinds of stuff?
I mean, that's just to add a little bit. I mean, I was just like when it comes to popular commercial, or at least commercial media, when the critique is often how it's liberal, it's filled with liberals. They say the same thing about sports, ignoring the politics of the owners. So they'll say this channel, this platform is liberal relative to Fox News maybe, but they ignore the politics of the ownership, the investors, and all of that. to try to make it about, well, this player said that or this player did that. Well, what are these owners doing? They're all representing the most conservative, backwards policies that maintain all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Billionaires, hedge fund billionaires.
Who won't let black people in as owners. I mean, we're still doing the Rooney Rule nonsense. I saw that was still at play just to get black people interviewed for a coaching job.
Right.
I mean, I mean,
while acknowledging, because you've written on it, you taught this, right? That even having black owners doesn't do anything for the black community.
No.
Like that doesn't. But to your point, they're still in our faces with it. Be like, we don't have to change nothing. What you gonna do?
What you gonna do?
Right? Joe Biden can post this. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? He has that. Joe Biden had that commercial. There's that commercial where he's sitting with the father and 2 black boys. I don't know if you saw that. Joe Biden pulls up to this brother's house with chicken and French fries, and is sitting at a table, right, while the father's talking to his sons and be like, tell him, oh, I like sports, I like this. Oh, I'm in some sort of like business class at my high school, and they teach us and they take us to different corporations and while they're all sitting there eating chicken and French fries. That man sounded as senile as all hell. Yeah.
So that did.
I don't know if anybody else saw it, but yeah, look it up. Yeah, it's a Joe Biden commercial with him talking. Yeah.
Somebody send me that link.
I'll look at it. I'll send it to you. Yeah, eating chicken tenders and fries at a table. Yeah, playing around in our faces. When are we gonna get into the fight, man? When are we gonna say enough is enough? And so you can use these moments. You can use the Super Bowl to enter these conversations. You can use soccer. You can use the sports. There's stay off social media too much. There's a whole fight I saw on social media where they're telling, someone that made a comment that the left needs to get in the gym and needs to work out because these right-wing folks, they are jacked. They are like into all kinds of mixed martial arts. They are training, right, for violence. And that a lot of times the left protests, folks look weak. They got little arms. They can't fight nobody. They can't whatever. And that folks should really not only read books, but should also get in the gym and get healthy and get strong. And the pushback was telling people to read and telling people to get in the gym is ableist. And y'all just some ableist, authoritarians or whatever. And there's been a whole war on in the social media about whether telling people to read and get in the gym is ableist. Meanwhile, the folks on that side is they doing what they doing. But it's wild out here, Dr. Ball. It's what I mean. It's I just wanted to watch a football game with SpongeBob and Patrick, but I couldn't even do that. I watched that version. I'm not gonna lie to you. I watched that version. That was the more fun version, but
that sounds like it. I mean,
amazing.
I should have checked it out myself. I had no idea.
It's amazing.
Are there, just real quick, are there any questions that I missed in the chat? Anybody got a comment, question?
And shout out to Ricky. Ricky, I think, said that she was in Cuba right now watching or something like that.
Oh, word?
Yeah.
I missed that.
Using up all her internet credits to watch us.
That's an honor. Shout out to you.
Ricky.
Yeah. Shout out to Cuba.
Wouldn't be me, but shout out to
man, I would watch Hiram on BPM if I was in Cuba. Tell
man, I'd be drinking mango juice and hanging out in that sun. You could watch it when you get home. It's recorded.
And I suppose that's a fact. But part of being in the live chat is part of the fun. And shout out to everybody down there and shout out to Sis as well. I hope all is relatively well and everybody is doing good things.
And shout out to the remixers too, man, because the remixers pull up heavy. Wherever people are at, right? Be it Millennials, Capitalism, or wherever. Sometimes I'll be seeing them when People's Forum has things going on, or if BT News is good. Guaranteed the remix is going to be in the building.
I see them
heavy. I don't think anybody else's like group rolls the way the remixes do.
The remixes roll.
Yeah.
But Yipper needs to know about that couch though.
Damn, what was the store? Neiman Marcus, was it Neiman Marcus? I can't remember. I'll tomorrow's morning show, I'll drop it in the chat.
There you go.
And what's that?
There you go. Remix is rolling up. Exactly.
Nah, but shout out to the remix. And again, it's a testament to your work, Dr. Ball, and the rest of the squad, right?
To the crew, absolutely.
Who put BPM together, and providing this learning space. Ain't nobody ever heard of me until you had me come on your show. So
that's not true either. But
I mean, that is true. Ain't nobody asked me to say nothing. You see how I get all wow, excited and whatnot.
That's what we need.
I get a little nut.
Renee's asking, does Hiram recognize the Homelander reference for that Biden meme? Oh, I didn't. Do you know about the Homelander? I don't know what that is, Renee. I don't know if you want to break that down or if that's something we need to wait for Saturday to learn about. I don't know.
That anime? I don't know what that was.
I missed that too. I definitely don't know.
The anime? Do I sound like an old man? Is that anime?
Is that
Is that anime?
What are you whippersnappers watching?
What? Is that anime?
Get off my lawn with your anime.
The phone won't stop ringing.
Oh, then she said she'll break it down on Saturday. So there's Homelander. Oh, it's The Boys. From
Boys.
that somebody who was telling me I'm supposed to watch that.
Yeah.
Was that Dr. Burroughs telling me?
That was a comic book, right? That they turned into a
show. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've heard I think he was the one telling me it was better. I'll be watching all the atheist debate channels. I don't have time for all that stuff. When I'm not in these BPM type spaces, I'm watching the atheists debate each other.
I was watching that Griselda. I was watching Griselda.
Yeah.
It's type of stuff I watch. I wasn't.
Yeah. That's
a different show.
Yeah. I think I've peeped that a little bit myself, but it's better than the MCU. Well, Griselda sucks. Damn.
Yeah, Griselda was. I mean, if you've seen like the actual Griselda documentaries and all those things, then yeah, it was. But I was checking it out.
All right, good people. Well, listen. No, Alex, Veep is not patriotic. You missing it. It is not a tome to the U.S. presidency and vice presidency. It's a troll. They are, oh man, please give it another chance. Veep is important. No. All right, my man. Listen,
real quick,
go ahead.
Real quick, to come back, I think the college football thing is wild, right? Like what's happening with college football and the money involved, the reshaping of the destroying of conferences, the merging. I believe that these schools are making a move and will eventually secede from the NCAA altogether, right? Because just the amount of money that's coming in from like Apple and Amazon and all this stuff. But would love to be on to talk about this with Daruba, because this whole idea started when I came on to talk to Daruba about prime time, and he gets excited. I just want to see him hop up out his seat again.
Yeah, I'll use that as another excuse to reach back out to him and see what's up. I think that'd be great.
Because his son is still playing, right? His son is still playing. So yeah, man, that whole world has changed in a matter of like 5 years, man. It is wild. It is a gilded age inside of college football, and the way they are making money hand over fist, and I mean, it is wow.
Now that's deep. The NCAA, I remember at one point hearing an argument about the NIL being part of the fear was that it was going to break the stranglehold of the NCAA. But I don't know if that's where you're headed.
It's the TV deal money. It's a TV. Yes, I would love Emma to come on with.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Emma too, hop on. But it's a TV deal money. And so the TV rights, so it's the Big Ten and the SEC are the two big conferences. They all have TV rights, the conferences. The Big Ten and the SEC, basically the Midwest and the South, got the biggest contracts. You're talking about I think it's like $110 billion or something like that. And so each school can make up to $100 to $125 million a year just off TV. And what that ended up doing was the Pac-12 school, because all the conferences were based off regions, right? Because the teams travel. What it did was they started to poach the schools from the other conferences to make their conference, right, better. And so then you had USC and UCLA, which were the crown jewels of the Pac-12 in California, join the conference in the Midwest. That helps the Midwest negotiate bigger TV rights contracts.
And they put Maryland in the Big Ten.
Maryland is in the Big Ten. I saw the Ohio State. I saw CJ Stroud play in Maryland because I'm right here in Philly, right? But what it did was it destroyed the conferences so that they can, because now it's like, well, am I going to make $35 million off this TV deal, or can I go over here and make $100-something million? The problem is that now you're going to have young people, not just the football teams, but all the sports teams, because they're in the same conference, are going to have to travel from LA to Maryland, right? Back to LA, to Rutgers, New Jersey, to Michigan, to you know what I mean? And so the flight and the travel that these kids are going to have to is going to be insane. But it's all about the money that's coming into the universities by way of these TV contracts. The NIL is then how they use the money to then ramp up their team. So it's free agency. And so now you can load up these teams in these mega super conferences to make super teams, to put a better product on the field to sell. And then the transfer portal lets you hop in and out whenever you want and go wherever you want. And so teams can take you, right? And so that's become a professional league. The NCAA is the ones who set the standards on safety regulations, on the monies that can be used, the tampering, the steroid use, all of that stuff. The instance that starts tampering with the money being made, the NCAA is gone. And they're already moving toward that. Where the Big Ten and the SEC, which is it's capitalism, right? It's monopoly. They're making monopolies out of these two companies. They have destroyed their competitions. They're making monopolies. And then they will consolidate that and ultimately secede from the NCAA and put college football under the control of the College Playoff Committee with its advertisements. It's advertised Nike, all the Apple, NBC, ABC, all these folks, Fox, they're all involved in that. And we will see a complete shift, and have already seen a complete shift in the way college football is played, is managed, is run. But what you will see is an increased exploitation of those young men who play on these teams, much in the way we talked about with the baseball academies, much in the way we talk about with all sports. And just now the court in Massachusetts ruled in favor of Dartmouth's basketball team, who argued in the court that they're not players, they're workers for the university, and therefore have a right to unionize. And the Massachusetts Supreme Court granted that and said, yes, they're correct. We about to see all kinds of stuff coming up, Dr. Ball.
Well, good for that, because I was just in Annapolis last week supporting the effort to get collective bargaining rights for faculty and grad students in Maryland. And if ball players at Dartmouth can be a union, can unionize, why can't actual faculty and hired laborers be unionized here in Maryland? So good for them.
Yeah. So a lot to talk about in these politics and sports streets, but thank you for the opportunity to always be down.
No, man, thank you. Anytime.
It's in politics, because this was cool.
The more the merrier. The more the merrier. So I will immediately start trying to produce this Daruba show, and I'll be trying to get you back on here sooner, than that as well. Like,
I think the folks are tired of seeing me, so I might have to take a few months off and then hop back on.
Better get the hell out of here. All right, my man. Look.
All right, man.
Big peace to you. Thanks to the remixers. Of course, peace to all of you as long as you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. And we will catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like and throughout the platform. Please like, share, subscribe. Do all the things that help us keep doing what we're trying to do. And we'll catch you next time. Peace, everybody. Thanks again, Hiram, man. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you,
Take
remixers.
Care. Right on. Peace. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I...
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm. Kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, they set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy and defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything. Did you call